All right. Well, hello. Today is January 28th. This has been an interesting time these last couple days with the Holocaust, International Holocaust Memorial yesterday. And, one of my prayers was like, Lord, please let there not be any attacks or issues with the commemorations that were going on, because there has been just some warnings about that. So thankfully, it sounds very peaceful, right? That's what I've heard. And so anyways, I'm going to show you a clip of one of the commemorations yesterday. And we are waiting for Eran to come on. He couldn't come on yesterday. It was the bar mitzvah of Racheli's son, only child. Name is Lucas, actually. And so I'm not sure if Aran remembered that he was on today, because he's a bit busy too with Jonathan Leduc there. But anyways, here we go. I'm going to show you a short clip from yesterday. There, by the way, is Kate, William and Kate. She attended a Holocaust survivor gathering in London.
We are also here to proclaim and to pledge that we will never, never, ever allow history to repeat itself.
We were stripped of all our humanity. First, we were stripped naked and robbed of all our personal belongings. Then they brutally shaved all our hair.
And those who lived to see freedom, there were hardly none. So few. And now, there is only a handful.
All right, so that is just a short clip on yesterday. There was different commemorations for the 80th anniversary of Auschwitz being liberated. So we want to give praise to the Lord for the fact that, it went well yesterday. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it, that there's still survivors that are alive, as we saw there. And my heart is really that we obviously don't forget, but also that there's education that goes out. And now, right now, today, standing against anti-Semitism. So Eran was supposed to be on today. I think you might have forgot. I know that he's busy with Jonathan Leduc, who has arrived from Birmingham into the National Leadership Center today, as they will be discussing expansion of the NLC, the National Leadership Center, today. So we're going to just carry on. One of the things that yesterday, for those of you that were able to come on to what's called the Israel Virtual House of Prayer class, I was going into some of the stats of the Holocaust. And I think I might do a little bit of that too. And then, of course, we want to just continue to pray as we are. There is supposed to be a release of 3 hostages tomorrow. That's a bit of a non-planned one, but because the Hamas had breached the contract to have the civilian women released before the IDF women, and they didn't do that by, is it Arabelle Yehuda? And so she is supposed to be released tomorrow. We want to pray for this to go smoothly. And then there's a mystery person. But Stella, can you share for a moment? You sent me an email. I just read part of it, but just some of what you were sharing yesterday, or we were on those Zooms together yesterday, but you were talking about Murray Saul. Can you just explain about him? Just let's put a face and a name to some of this that we're discussing about remembering from the liberation of Auschwitz, remembering what happened in the Holocaust. That was what yesterday was all about. But just unmute. I might show this picture here too.
Um, there it reminded me there was something yesterday in the Holocaust remembrance about people that were taken and had to work for Nazis against their will.
Yes.
One of them was Murray Saul. Uh, he was 17 years old, and he and a few other Jewish young men were set to clean the offices of the officers. And Murray, I knew his two sisters very, very well. And we went to the Messianic congregation together. Murray at 17 witnessed another Jewish young man who was just killed, just like that. They would see, oh, can you give me 1 second? I'm just on this important call. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll put you on hold then if you don't mind.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just go through it quickly, and then I'm going to shift.
Yeah, she's staying on hold. So he saw him killed, and of course, this puts you have the fear. Forget about post-traumatic stress. I mean, the fear is always there when you're sleeping and everything.
Mhm.
At one point, what I didn't share with Patricia
Mhm.
was that one of the Nazi soldiers came up to him, to Murray, at one point and said, "Where are my cigarettes?" And he says, "I'm sorry, I don't know where the cigarettes are." "Oh no, you took them. You took them." Takes his gun out. Now he's drunk. And he
Mm.
puts his gun to his face.
Yeah.
And then the Nazi laughs, ha 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 ha, later. And so Murray lived. You know, the Nazi said, "Later, I'll shoot you." And he lived. He became a barber. And then I'm not sure how old he was. I never got into how old he was. But one day at the shul, my Messianic friend Ariane, who made Aliyah eventually, had two Holocaust surviving parents. And she was just talking so beautifully to him and just ministering to him. And then he gave his heart to the Lord.
Okay.
Uh,
Awesome.
and then a couple
Well,
years later, he
yeah.
died in
And
his.
like you were telling me too that he would scream out in the night, and that's very
Oh, yeah.
common. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
again, if you're coming on late, Iran probably forgot he's on today, but what I want to do is I'm going to show you a couple things that you might, if you were not on last night when we did this class, but there's a guy too. These ledgers, I don't know if you can see that, but this is ledgers of the Nazis tried to destroy everything when the Allied forces were coming. And this was on the floor and was picked up by a prisoner. Anything, I heard this yesterday in this class too, for some of you who went on to the Midwest Center for Holocaust Education. There was a class on Auschwitz in particular. But any documentation that they have of the prisoners killed or these ledgers was because of inmates who picked them up or saved them or hid them, because otherwise everything was burned. The Nazis sought to burn every evidence. That's why the crematoriums were destroyed. A lot of these, the names, who came, who's gone, that was all burned. Okay, let me just go into this super quick because we know 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. 1.5 million were children. 2 million died by bullets. That's called the Holocaust by bullets. Because mostly it's when Germany turned on the Soviet Union, invaded Soviet Union and the nations that made up the Soviet Union later, but that's when mostly that's when all the shooting took place, when they made them dig their own graves. Many Holocaust survivors were never in concentration camps, but survived, many survivors, that is, they were not in Holocaust concentration camps. Some concentration camp people survived, obviously, but most of the survivors were in hiding in ghettos or fleeing into the Soviet Union or passing as non-Jews. Of course, there was other victims of the Nazis, the Romas or the Gypsies, people with disabilities. The Poles were seen as subhuman, by the way, so a lot of them died. Jehovah Witnesses, gay people, and the Soviet prisoners of war. Most Jewish victims of the Holocaust were from Eastern Europe. And most concentration camp survivors weren't liberated in the same place as they spent most of the war because they were put on death marches. I'm just checking to see if Eran came on, but don't see him. Okay. So by the way, how many died in the death marches? That's when the Allies are coming close and they want to cover up, they want to, instead of just letting these concentration camp people just stay there to be liberated, instead, they made them in flimsy clothes without any food, go on these horrendous death marches into central Germany. And on that, 1/4 250,000 people died on the death marches. All right, here we've got death of Jews by location, shooting operations and gas weapons in the German-occupied Soviet Union. 1.3 million died there. Auschwitz, 1 million. We're talking Jews. More than 1 million died in Auschwitz, but when we're talking the Jews, 1 million died in Auschwitz. Treblinka, 925,000. The ghetto deaths, 800,000. Belzec concentration camp, by the way, okay, 433,508. Everybody in Belzec ended up dying. There was no survivors that were liberated from the Belzec concentration camp. Sorbiter was the one, I was saying this yesterday, this is the only concentration camp where there was a successful uprising. There's a movie about Sorbiter. I'm not sure if you should watch it or not, but it does tell the truth of a Soviet prisoner of war who led the revolt in Sorbiter. Sorbiter was a pure death camp. In other words, most everybody who arrived went immediately to the chambers to die, except for anybody that had some sort of skill to keep the camp running. So if you were a cook, if you were a tailor, if you were somebody who repaired shoes, you might live. And that led to the revolt amongst those people. But otherwise, it was a pure death camp. But they did have a successful uprising when the Allies came. Sorbiter had already been shut down because of that uprising. Chelmino, I don't know how to say that, 167,000, that's supposed to say. And other facilities like Ravensbrück and other places like that, designated as concentration camps, 150,000 died. Death of Jews by nation, the most is 3 million of the Polish Jews that died. 88% of the Polish Jews died. Soviet Union lost 1 million or 33%. Romania, 287,000, 38% of the Romanian Jews. Germany, 165,000, 33% of the Jews. And why does that seem lower? It's because many of them fled before, as they saw the laws coming with Hitler, many of them fled or immigrated to other nations. That's the Jews in Germany, including a friend I'll see next week. His family were German Jews and they fled to the UK. Hungary lost 270,000 or 61% of their Jews. Czechoslovakia, 260,000, 73% of their Jews. France lost 25% of the Jews. Austria, 32% of the Jews. Lithuania, highest number, 145,000 or 97% of their Jews. Not highest number in terms of total, but in terms of percentage. Lithuania had many, many anti-Semitic Lithuanians, non-Jews who were very anti-Semitic in Lithuania, led to 97% of their Jews being lost. The Netherlands, 73%. Latvia, 75%, Belgium, 28%, Bulgaria. Now, I want to just qualify this because I've talked about Bulgaria before, but I have to say that Bulgaria did lose Jews only in the territories that were annexed into Bulgaria. Like it's called Thrace, and I forget the names, but that's actually part of Greece. And even today, it's part of Greece. So there were Jewish people that were lost in the annexed areas that would just recently been annexed to Bulgaria, because at first Hitler and the king of Bulgaria were in cahoots with each other, but then they turned their back on Hitler because of but Bulgaria proper, like the actual nation of Bulgaria, did not lose any Jews because of the fact that the king of Bulgaria and the church, the Orthodox in particular, rose up against Hitler or deportations. So that's what happened there. Okay, and then we got a few more facts here. 10% of the Germans who worked at Auschwitz were never put on trial. The Nazis' approach to citizenship laws and the restrictions on marriage between people of different, quote, races was inspired, sadly, by race laws in the United States. Although Nazi is short for National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis were not socialists nor supporters of workers. They picked the words they thought would get the most German people to support them. The Nazis believed that they would rule for 1,000 years. Didn't they steal that, obviously, from the Bible? 1,000-year reign. However, they were in control of Germany for 12 years. Forced laborers. This is an interesting topic. I was sharing with the fact that I read this book recently from a Dutch guy from my hometown of Stratford, Ontario, Canada, called The Dutchman's Suitcase. But he was a forced laborer, and that was a very big deal. How many Dutch, Hungarian, French, Belgium, a lot of these different nations, there was forced laborers picked up by the Nazis. At first, it started between the ages of 18 and 44. All the men were, conscripted into the war effort in Germany. They were slaves. They were forced into labor. 7.5 million of them were there in Germany from other countries by 1944. And a number of them died, but some of them lived, especially if you had a real trade, like if you're a mechanic, if you're a plumber, if you were somebody of use, you were treated better. Number of concentration camp prisoners killed on death marches there, I said 250,000. German Jews who emigrated to the United States, 33 to 45, 140,000. The share of the migrants' wealth taken by the German government in 1937, 92.5%. So most of their wealth, their money, their goods, their homes, their artwork was confiscated by the German government. On Kristallnacht, the number of synagogues burned, 1,406. Tax placed on Jews for damages after Kristallnacht. Isn't that crazy that they were taxed for the damage done to them? 1 billion Reichsmarks. Jews sent to concentration camps after Kristallnacht, 30,000. And here is some good news, righteous among the nations. So this is Yad Vashem's numbers of the righteous Gentiles who stood up by country to help the Jews who were recognized. I want to emphasize who are recognized, because even my grandmother and grandfather who helped save Jews, who did get a gold coin from Dayal Moshan, is that his name? That general with the eye patch. They did get a gold coin from the nation of Israel for their help in saving Jews in the Netherlands, but they're not recognized by Yad Vashem. So just to say, this is going to be lower than actuality. But Poland had 7,323 righteous among the nations. Netherlands, 5,982. France, 4,206. Ukraine, 2,691. Belgium, 1,787. Lithuania, 924. Hungary, 876. Italy, 766. Belarus, 680. Germany, 651. Slovakia, 638. Greece, 364. Russia, 217. God bless all of these people that were found, were named, they went after them, even in the 70s, even into the 90s, going after righteous among the nations to give them credit and recognition at Yad Vashem. In Israel now, today, 123,000 survivors of the Holocaust are living in Israel. That's a lot, isn't it? Children, and these ones are paid support by the government of Israel for the Holocaust survivors. It totals 3.9 billion Israeli shekels per year, or in 2024, 3.9 billion shekels was paid to survivors of the Holocaust. There are 133 Israelis who fought in the Allied forces that are still alive in Israel today, and they fought in the Second World War. And by the way, this number of survivors includes those who survived the Nazi persecution, those who fled in advance of the Nazi forces, particularly to the Soviet Union, and then some were survivors of, they went outside of Europe, like they went the Jews living under the French Vichy regime went to Morocco, or they went to Algeria and there was Iraqi Jews as well. So that just gives some of our stats here of what we're talking about. But this was, again, the commemoration yesterday. I don't want us to forget. I pray that the world would not forget. And I pray that even days like yesterday would be like, let's see the education amongst the children of today. I mean, it is said that 4 billion people on the planet either don't know about the Holocaust, they haven't heard about it, they weren't educated about it, or they're deniers of the Holocaust. You know, one survivor, I was just listening to some testimonies yesterday of survivors, and, you know, one survivor said that she, she was in the Netherlands, and it was like 20 different people that helped her survive. So she went from home to home to home to home. And after the war, there was a sergeant in I think it was in the Allied forces, who she was telling her story, saying about how she went to this home, that home. And then he listened. And then after she was done, he said, "Oh, that's a real fanciful story there, isn't it, that you've made up?" I mean, the Holocaust denying was immediate for her. Like, in other words, he didn't believe that she, you know, had help from all these 20 different families or people. And that's what made her clam up and say, I'm just not going to tell people about this. How many of you know that that is many times the case, is that Holocaust survivors don't want to talk about it? Because, and this guy that I shared that to the people that were on. I might just do that again. The people that were on yesterday. I'm not saying that you should get this book, because I thought it was kind of disturbing and it's not Christian. The reason I why I liked it, in a sense, was because of the fact that I have studied this, meaning the Holocaust, for, you know, I like to be in the know and, you know, care and all that sort of stuff. But I never actually heard from or studied the forced laborers. So I'm just going to show you this just in case you care about this particular thing. But this, again, non-Christian book from a real guy, Peter Menschgedade. I got to talk to my mom. I'm meaning to talk to her. I'm going to ask her if she knows him, because he was in my hometown of Stratford, Ontario, Canada. He survived being a forced laborer from the Nazis in Germany. And so he, thankfully for him, he was a mechanic. He said, I always thank my dad for forcing me to learn a trade, because he said the ones who learned the trade were better off when they were forced laborers in Nazi Germany than the ones who were they didn't have any skill. They were put in factories, or they were put in loading docks, and they were treated very badly. But because he had a skill of both being a driver of these large trucks as well as a mechanic, he was treated better, and he survived the war, immigrated to Canada, went to my hometown, where there's a lot of Dutch people, by the way, in Stratford, Canada. And anyway, so his story was very compelling, written by his daughter, Elizabeth, and with the memoirs of him. And he was also one who didn't talk about it for 60 years, 60. He would not discuss the horrendous times that he had being a forced laborer in Nazi Germany. And it's very typical. And then later in life, that was like my dad, who glorified his childhood. And then it was later in life when I would hear those stories that came out. Maybe it was just that, you know, those buried memories that finally you got to get off your chest, which he would talk about the murders of the beautiful Dutch young people in his hometown, because an SS officer was injured, and they would indiscriminately pick up innocent Dutch people to do retaliation on any underground activity. And my uncles were involved in the underground. So anyways, I'm rambling, but I just want us to not forget the fact that the Holocaust happened yesterday is important. And why is it January 27th every year, International Holocaust Memorial? Because of the fact that that's when Auschwitz, the largest killing machine concentration camp, was liberated. And what that happened on January 27th of 1945. All right, so we're going to shift into prayer. Mark, do you want to just share for just a minute. Your dad, tell us about your dad. What what happened with him?
My dad was born in southern Poland, and of the 8 siblings that went through the war, 6 survived, which is an incredible number. My dad was the youngest, and he was in several ghettos and concentration camps. He was a survivor of Auschwitz, and he went on the death march with my uncle, and they ended up in Bavaria, Germany. And my dad had this story, I'll just share it because it's so amazing. He was hiding in a barn in Bavaria, and they would dug themselves into these big bales of straw. And the farmer knew he was there. And so the farmer came out with a pitchfork and threatened that if they don't come out, he's going to skewer them with a pitchfork. Well, my dad gave up. He says, well, I've survived all this. I guess this is it. And he wrote his biography. I have a copy of it. Anyway,
Wow.
what happens is my dad puts his hands up. A German soldier comes by and puts a gun to his head, like your friend. And at that moment, another officer comes by on a horseback, whispers something into the ear of the soldier that has the gun at my dad's head.
Yeah.
And the soldier, puts his gun away, slaps my dad on the back, and says, well, you survived. The war is over.
Wow. No kidding.
No,
Oh my
my,
goodness.
my
At
dad
that moment,
has,
at that moment.
at that moment, my
Wow.
dad has so many stories of miraculous escapes, and it's in his book. And I said to him, my dad was a real atheist after the war. I mean, where's
Mhm.
God kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so at one point I said to him, I said, you know, in your book, you talk about by chance, and it just so happened by chance and by chance. I said, no, it wasn't chance. It was God. God saved your life.
Yes,
And
yes.
he said, well, I won't say yes, and I won't say no. Anyway,
Wow.
my
Yeah, Mark.
dad's story is incredible. It's fast paced and everything. He self published it. I have a copy of it here. It's called Love in the Shadow of the Swastika. And it's about love that carried him through. Amazing story. And my wife and I want to reprint them. So if people are interested, I could send you copies if you want.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that, Mark. I was just going to suggest, like this daughter of the book I just showed you guys about the
Yeah, I'll
Dutchman.
show you right now.
Yeah, but what I was saying is, I think you should republish it, for now. And by the way, you can publish books on Amazon as well, right? If you guys know that,
Right,
Amazon has
right.
an form of publishing.
Can you
So
see it?
yeah, what's the title say again?
Love in the Shadow of the Swastika.
Okay. So is it like, for
Amazing.
example, is it well written? Because
Yes,
okay, it is. Okay, because
and
otherwise,
it's easy. It's an easy read.
oh, definitely
It's
republish
been
it.
edited and re-edited professionally.
Okay. Wow, I didn't even know that. That's awesome. So yes, tell people how they can get it or republish it and let us know.
That was my dad.
That was it. We'll put you. Oh, handsome dude. Okay, that's an incredible story.
He had all these women after him, especially after the war. They
Oh,
followed him to Canada. It was quite funny. But
oh.
anyway,
All right. Wow. There's a story for us right there. And again, I mentioned Eran's grandfather was a Holocaust survivor from Auschwitz. I'm just picking up on, where is it? Carlene, you said that Covenant and Controversy Part 3, The Great Troubles, a well-done documentary. That sounds really good about the Bulgarian Jews. I'll look that up. And somebody mentioned the Denmark. Yes, the Danish, Valerie. The Danish people were incredible in terms of helping the Jews. I've read articles about how there was this strait or passageway that they would put them on boats, and many fishermen and just, they would give their boats to transport the Jews over to Sweden because they were not deported. And so that's incredible. The Danish people deserve recognition, and the Finnish people too. They only lost 7 Jews in the war. incredible. There's some of these nations really rose up to protect their Jews. Others did not. But anyways, so good stuff. What's that book there, Mark? Just you have to unmute yourself.
Called In the Garden of the Righteous. It's heroes who risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust. So
Okay,
there's
wow.
tons of books on this. And there's, I don't know if your people are interested, but there's an organization called the Susa Mendes Foundation. And every month they have a video and they have a webinar about rescuers every month. It's quite phenomenal. I just saw one on Sunday afternoon about these 7 sisters from Germany, who all 7 siblings who all survived because this German farmer and his wife, they were Christians, hid them in their farm and they survived. So
Wow.
called
All right.
Susa Mendes.
Let's shift to prayer now. You can put things in the chat about how to connect with that, but we want to pray. I want to pray for the hostages being released tomorrow. Let's pray that that goes well. Still much needed in terms of, wisdom for Netanyahu and, gosh, there's so many things going on. Some of these families are being told brace for the worst. We don't know that your hostage family member is alive. That must be just anguishing to know. Are they dead? Are they alive? What's happening to my loved one that's still in those tunnels? And by the way, it is said that even for these IDF women that came back, they spent at least 8 months in a tunnel, never seeing the sun. Can you imagine? Just, incredible that they survived that and they even have their mental faculties intact from being in such a dark place for so long. All right, well, let's pray. I'll launch and we're going into rapid fire. Lord, we love you and we come before you. And Father, we're praying for healing. Even now, with 100, even in Israel itself, 123,000 Holocaust survivors are still alive. And we want to pray, and it's just going to end the recording here. But